Folks, welcome back to the series of setting your AI strategy right. So, like I mentioned in the last video, there are 8 steps. These are my 8 steps. I'm going to be talking about step one, which is about setting the right goal for your AI adoption to be successful, your AI experimentation to be successful, right? Now, with that, we move forward. Now, let's first look at why do AI projects fail? Like, what's the number one cause? Generally, because the goals are very vague. They are at a very superficial level. Okay, we're going to improve the AOV or we'll improve CSAT. And that's what it is, right? They don't have anything measurable. I think that whole step of M in SMART goals is completely gone. So if you really want to do something with AI, please look at the SMART goals, which is being specific, measurable, etc. The rest of it you can Google around. But having vague goals is a sure shot way of not meeting your AI project goals, and you will end up burning out people. You will end up burning a lot of money, a lot of resources, all gone. And you will then resort back to doing manual tasks the way you were doing before, and then you will curse AI forever. I think we need to understand first and foremost is setting up very clear goals, and this entire conversation is all about that. I'm going to briefly touch upon some other concepts about data, etc., that I have an elaborate session on in the upcoming videos. But point being, having vague goals is a sure shot way of failing AI projects. Another thought process or another thing to keep in mind is starting with tool first. Long ago, when we had app stores, either Google's or Apple's, we would say, "Hey, there's an app for that." But today, I'm hearing more and more we have a GPT for that. I think that's great. GPT has made things a lot more accessible. A lot of people can now start building their own GPTs. But the thing to understand is just don't look at a tool and say, because I have a tool, I'm going to figure out. So this is basically a solution trying to look for a problem, right? I don't think so. That's the right approach. You should look at the problem first. Put yourself in the customer's shoe, understand what the customer is trying to do, and then based on that, you could go ahead and start to evaluate more and more use cases, figure out what the pain point is, etc. Right. Along with that, once you have a clear understanding of scope, etc., you then look at clear benefits. What are the benefits of it? And is this measurable or not? Right? If it is not measurable, there's no way for you to create a baseline. There's no way for you to take this forward. Then you're asking for trouble, right? Because now you don't know. It's as good as there's a very popular quote from Stephen Covey from there's a book that he wrote, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, where he said if you put up a ladder on a wrong wall and you keep climbing fast, it doesn't make you successful. You still reach the wrong wall faster. And the sure shot way of climbing the wrong wall in an AI project is definitely to not have any baseline, not really know if your AI project's working, even if you have specific goals, even if you start looking at the problem, and if you don't have the right metric, you don't have the right baseline, sorry, you never know whether you're making progress or not. Anyways, moving forward. Uh, so what are the steps? The steps are you first start with the business problem, like I spoke about. Identify a specific pain that the customer has or your business is facing, right? Is it about improving CSAT? Is it about improving wait times in a queue? Is it about reducing your call time for customer support, right? Because then you have something measurable. So then you start creating a baseline. So that's what it is. You have a very specific pain point to start with. Just don't say we'll improve CSAT. By what? Or even within that, we'll talk more about segments, etc. But have a very specific pain point to start with. Just don't keep it vague. Second, avoid the tool first thinking approach that we were talking with, that we spoke about, and ChatGPT being one of them. We have an LLM, we have ChatGPT, let's make use of it, let's do something and release it out. You don't even know what you're up against, right? And a good example that I've called out is, customer churn is high. Can we predict and reduce it? Right. This is a good example, but I would like to go a little bit more to say the customer churn is high. It's currently at so and so. Can we predict, when the customer might churn and reduce it by some percentage? That's even much better, right? Moving on, identify one key core KPI. Select a metric. If it is churn, what is the churn percentage? You then go ahead and define the baseline, like I spoke earlier. You currently measure the baseline, and you don't measure baseline over a short period of time. Measure a baseline over a long period of time, and also how it behaves and changes over different intervals of time. That's very important. A lot of people will look at 1 year churn, they look at different churn segments. And if your business has seasonality, you need to account for a lot of that. And then you need to come up with some statistical modeling to come up with a good baseline number. Again, it's predictable. If you know that a quarter is always like this, then that becomes your baseline. Just don't try to average it out or create a median out of the whole year. You're just going to fail miserably, right? For example, if you're predicting sales during like a festive season, you will definitely achieve much more sales compared to what you would if you just average it out through the year. So if you have seasonality, keep that in mind, create a baseline accordingly. Definitely need to do that, right? And then you set a target to say, okay, if quarter two sales figures were this, or churn was that, or perhaps your CSAT score is XYZ, then you go ahead and define a target to say, in this case, like what I've called out, improve the CSAT from 74% to 84 or 82% using AI chat, or whatever it is that you're trying to keep a track of, right? So one key core metric and then everything else. So everything else then becomes ancillary. I would recommend, if you're starting it out for the first time, start simple, don't complicate things, start with one key core KPI, and then make progress. With that, the next step is to break the goal into specific use cases. So take a big use case of CSAT and divide it into smaller, chunks. Can I just increase it from 74% to 75 or 76% in the next one quarter, for example? Like, what can I do to do that? You may be surprised that to get from 74 to 76 doesn't even need AI. You could do this even with minor optimization. So that's a good way to get started on your AI journey, because you don't need AI to get to an AI solution, right? You start with heuristics, you figure things out. As part of that, you're not only understanding the end goal and the problem statement. With divide and conquer, you're understanding specific areas where you can go deeper into, and then start narrowing and segmenting things around. So, for example, instead of just saying I'm going to reduce churn, I'm going to improve my churn prediction overall from X to Y. Rather than doing that, you say, for churn prediction, I'm going to start with prepaid mobile customers under the age of 25. So, that's a very specific segment. And then you identify the behavioral pattern within that segment, and then you try to build your machine learning models or AI models. Cool. Moving on to step 4, you have to prioritize. You just cannot, once you go deeper into your problem, you just cannot pick up anything that works. Always start with the low hanging fruit. Like I said, moving from 74% of some metric to 75, 76 is relatively easier, as opposed to from 74 directly taking it to 85. That is the difficult part. So once you segment and you identify those areas, identify the high impact, low complexity problems. You will always have them. No matter what, you will always have it in any business. Aim for that. The best part, when you do that, the advantage is your team learns more about the data, does the deep dive, gets more confidence. You're able to demonstrate value to your sponsors faster. They continue to invest more resources in terms of time, money, and people, including. And third, the program starts to look at being successful from get-go, rather than you waiting for 9 months, 10 months. You are having micro wins and you're celebrating micro wins and gaining more confidence. Then you start looking at high impact, high complexity. This is where you create a limited pilot. You don't do a big bang approach and change the entire banking system or the hospital system or customer support system. Create limited pilots. If you're looking at customer support, are you looking at a particular segment of products for which you need customer support? Or are you looking at a particular type of problems for which you get customer support? Even within that, narrow down, right? And create pilots. Just don't look at one aspect and go deep into it. Create pilots, launch it. And again, I'm going to talk more about how do you create pilots, how do you launch it, how do you measure success when the pilot is launched in subsequent videos. But you definitely need to create pilots, without which it's just not going to work. And if you identify low impact projects, it's better to just skip it. You don't have to achieve 100% of everything. Focus on your 80-20, figure out that 20% which will give you 80% benefit, right? So again, with that, you need to keep a few things in mind. And how do you divide it into high impact, low complexity, etc.? Is first and foremost, look at data readiness. Do you have the data ready with you, or would you have to compute the data? Is it very complex to get to the data that you really need? Next, what is your ROI potential, right? Will the benefits significantly outweigh like implementation costs. If you're going to take $1 million to implement something that just gives you 100K, it's a clear-cut sign that it's better that we just add more people to the process, cut the process, improve the process, so on and so forth. It just doesn't make sense. And how easy is it to really get into the next phase, or to go ahead and deploy or maybe even scale, including how easy it is for you to plug and play into your existing workflow. Do you need a lot of training? Do you need a lot of manpower to get things done and get off the ground? Do you need a lot of push from the senior management from an adoption standpoint? So I think those are things that you really need to look at as well. Moving on to step 5, you need to identify the business and key tech stakeholders, right? Again, I'm not going to walk through the entire slide, but it's important for you to identify who your sponsors are, who's the one that, like, which team, which department, or which org is funding that entire idea. You need to align well with the finance team in terms of budget. So you need to be working very closely with them, and legal compliance, of course, because if there's anything that could be construed as you misrepresenting a particular segment of people when they're interacting with your system, that could cause you a lot of legal troubles. And there are amazing examples with large tech companies. When they rolled out their AI hiring system, they started having a lot of bias towards a particular segment of towards a particular segment of audience, or towards a particular segment of users. On the tech side, work with data teams, figure out if they have the right data or not. Operations, I'm saying data and product, I'm looking at them as one unit because that's the core tech. And then operations purely from people who are going to use your tool, your software, your systems and implementations to understand how, like, to receive benefits. And then also work with customer success, because ultimately the goal of any AI system is to impact your customer's customer. So if your customer is the sales rep, or if your customer is the support team, ultimately they are not the customers. The ultimate beneficiaries are your customers' customers, the true customers who are paying you money to run your business and operations, right? So you need to bring everything on board, and you need to have clear metrics around all of them. Moving on, you need to also define what your success criteria and guardrails are. And we've spoken at length about success criteria in terms of measurable goals. So I'm not going to go deeper into that, but guardrails, of course. So is it fair? Are you is your data well segmented enough, or does your data have a good population or a good sample that represents the population in general? Do you have that in place? So you never will get to know unless you do a lot of random sampling, you do a lot of training on top of that, and figure out how your model performs over a period of time, and then you can bring that back into your modeling. With that, like I gave you an example, an AI implementation of an HR recruiting platform in a big tech company that went horribly wrong because they had a lot of bias, or the training data had a lot of one type of gender as opposed to the other type of gender, right? So you need to be very, very careful about having good representation in your data, including the biases that you bring in forms of your assumptions into modeling, right? Next is, what is a fallback plan, right? What happens if your AI just completely goes rogue, or what happens if it doesn't give you the benefits, or it starts creating more problems than it actually solves any? Do you have a fallback plan? Can you quickly switch it off, and is your team geared up for the fallback, right? Second, do you have a hybrid solution in place where your AI does something, even if it is medium probability of it being right? Is there a fallback plan or a hybrid plan where people can validate the output and then move forward? So at least the time of manual audit and inspection from these teams reduces quite a lot, but they can inspect and then give feedback to the engineering team about the output and the decisions, right? And does it adhere to business rules or not? Like, does it go ahead and create things that is completely violating the business principle or business ethics, including the guidelines defined by the business itself, right? So those are things that you need to keep in mind. And this is where a lot of people get it wrong. And this is the one that needs a lot of thought through. You just cannot rush through this step. Moving forward, moving forward, you need to build a feedback loop. Like I said, in general, it's called an AI ops or ML ops, where you start with monitoring KPIs, you gather user feedback, you check for biases, you monitor drift in either data or the performance, and then, you do a loop back. You get back to the drawing board, keep tweaking, take your learnings, go back and retrain, deploy new models, etc. I would recommend, and this is one tip that I would love for you people to listen to, is when you're starting your entire project, don't let the feedback loop be an afterthought. Let your feedback loop be the core center point from where you start the journey of AIification of your business. So the first step you do is, once everything is set and once the team starts to build the AI modeling, when the modeling works begin, you go ahead and create your monitoring dashboard starting from day one or day zero. Right now, it may be pathetic, it may all be blank or nulls or whatever, but at least when your team starts to do modeling, even in their staging environments, you will get a reflection of what that AI model does on the dashboard. A lot of times, the AI work goes on, the modeling work goes on. Like the people working on it look at different metrics, area under the curve, F score, etc., and from there they deploy it, and then they worry about dashboards. If you have the dashboard up front, trust me, you will start to see things publicly, maybe on a larger dashboard of how it's working, and anybody walking past can start pointing and saying, "Hey, something is wrong here. Would you want to check?" And that improves or increases the odds of success for you. So that's one tip that I would love to share with you. Moving on, I'm going to talk about some real world successes. I have deliberately hidden the name of the companies just because I don't want to fall into any legal trouble, but I'm going to give you a quick overview, and I'm just going to quickly walk through successes and failures. There was a healthcare provider who wanted to improve the triage time from currently 9 minutes to 3 minutes. Now, see, this is very specific. This is a goal that they wanted to take. They knew what the data was, they knew how what the average was, and they wanted to bring it down. When they did the deployment, the medical staff started using it and realized that they brought it down to 3 minutes, enabling the medical staff to cater to more patients in the same amount of time as opposed to what it was in a manual step, right? With that, it helped improve the CSAT score, the customer satisfaction score, resulting in, of course, more business. And for them, the entire technology focus was improving their NLP for symptom intake, where the patients talk about what the symptom is, and then there is an AI that listens to it and starts doing diagnosis and then segregating between, is this an emergency case, or can this be taken care of at home, right? So that's one aspect. I just wanted to call out, the goal is very nice. I want to reduce the triage time from 9 minutes to 3 minutes. Moving on, in an e-commerce domain, the clear goal was to improve the AOV by 15% in 90 days. Look at it being super specific, right? They know exactly what they want and by when do they want it. So they looked at the different data silos that they had, brought it together, looked at unifying the purchase, the behavioral data in terms of click streams, etc., repeat purchases, repeat visitors, so on and so forth. And with that, they were able to generate a model that resulted in a 17.3% increase of average order value, and definitely 24% better CTR on their homepage, right? Because a lot of people would land on the homepage and then the journey would begin from there. So this just is a clear indication of having or starting with a clear goal makes a huge difference, because the rest of it is easy. That's the tech side of things. It's easy once you have the data, but what you need to focus on is the key goal or the key step. Moving on, in a finance domain, they wanted to reduce their non-performing loans, and they set a clear goal again to reduce it by 25%. They did a lot of segmentation, a lot of modeling work was done. So they picked up one particular segment, they went deep into it, and with that, they resulted in a 27% drop in defaults and overall a 40% fewer manual reviews. Because no matter whatever you do, it's a very, very difficult domain to do, because you have to have a probabilistic score when you give a loan to someone, whether they have the capacity to repay or not. And a lot of times with automation, even with heuristics, it goes to a manual queue for audit. So they were able to reduce this, and therefore they were able to save a few $1 million, of course. Now, failure case study. Well, in this case, the goal was completely absurd. I want to use chatbot to improve my customer experience. It just doesn't mean anything. So what happened was, it was trained on all different sorts of data. The AI got confused. It started giving responses that just didn't make sense. Because of that, because the customer started interacting with the chatbot, the complaints surged and overall the retention dropped, and people just moved on to the competitors. So again, like I said, the key lesson here is set clear goals, make it specific, test before you put it onto a customer facing side, and have that feedback loop to come back and tell you something's wrong even from get go. You don't have to wait for your customers to tell you that. The next study is about in the finance domain, where they wanted to implement. So this was a stock trading kind of a company that would deal with customer investments for customers. So they were advisors, and they wanted to do predictive analytics on purchase decision or on investment decisions. Because their entire aspect was, we want to use AI to improve buying decisions or improve investment decisions. Very vague, right? So without a proper scope, without a proper KPI, they went ahead and did it. It underperforms so much that advisors completely abandoned that tool, and their entire investment in building that was completely wasted. They went back into their manual lessons or the manual way of doing things. So the key lesson here is, you should not only need to have clear goals, but you also need to have well-defined use cases and align with your stakeholders. Moving on, in a health domain, this was an AI to be used by doctors for diagnosis. In this case, like in the previous case of success, here the problem statement was, hey, let's use AI to improve diagnostics. Nothing very concrete. It's a very vague goal. Because of that, they went ahead and built the entire system, didn't know how to integrate with the health workflow that the doctors were used to, resulting in a lot of basic diagnosis that the doctors would just look at the patient and be like intuitively tell them what the problem is, right? They didn't need an AI to do that. With that, adoption rates completely plummeted. The accuracy was again always in a question, and basically zero efficiency gains. Not even a single department in that clinic was using it. So particularly for healthcare, if you're doing anything on AI, you must try to very precise clinical goals and workflow. You cannot keep it vague with the hope that your people, when you introduce AI, will be so happy that they would love to use it. People just don't want to do this. First, they hate change, and if they want to adopt change, if it doesn't perform up to their expectations, it's just not going to work. Moving on, just to summarize the common pitfalls to avoid before I close my session is, don't have vague goals, have very specific goals. Just don't look at tools first. If you have a GPT for that, or you have a cloud for that, or this for that, or that for that, start with the user, start with the business, and then go deeper into the use cases, and then start from there, and then use the tool to solve the problem. Not having a business stakeholder, not having leadership buy-in into your project, including finance, is a sure shot way to kill your project in the long term. Not thinking about where you're going to get the data from, not having any benchmarks or baselines defined is a another sure shot way to kill your project. And then do not ever overcomplicate your project. Look at one use case, a small micro segment in that, try to solve that problem first, and then come out of that. If you start with the big bang approach that you're going to go from X percentage to Y% in one go itself, no, it's not going to happen. It's going to actually create more disaster. So go in baby steps, tiny steps, divide and conquer, and make progress. With that, final takeaways. Again, I just want to repeat once more so that it, well ingrained in your thought process. Align with business goals, have a narrow focus, bring it down into very specific use case and a very specific example, and iteratively build, deploy, monitor that entire flywheel that I spoke to you about. Start with the dashboard first before you get to writing your or building your AI, and see how the whole evolution happens, and you'll be able to get to the business to the problems and challenges that you're going to face, or you face with the AI, even before your customer escalates. So what's your next step in your AI strategy? If you have an AI strategy currently, you may want to audit its goals. But if you're starting afresh, I think the video that I've recorded so far would help you. But if you already have an AI strategy, first and foremost, audit your current goals. If you don't have a cross-functional team, please bring people on board, including the end users or representatives of end users. Identify that first use case, the narrow use case that you can do, a low-hanging fruit, perhaps, right? Low complexity, high impact, or at least medium impact if it's where possible. Launch a pilot, test it. Don't take it into mainstream immediately. It's very tempting to do so. Never do that. And from there, once you launch it, you have your monitoring dashboard, you have your KPI dashboard. Observe and course correct. Invest in ops, either AI ops or ML ops, but please do that. That really help you. With that, thank you for listening to me so far, and I'd appreciate your feedback via comments or likes. And also, if you're interested to receive more such videos about AI strategy, techniques, or tips, or working demos and projects, please don't hesitate to subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit that bell icon to be notified whenever a new video goes online. Thank you for your time. Take care.